Frames per second, or FPS, is a common phrase that gets used all the time in the video industry. In this short demo, we're going to take a look at what frames per second, or FPS, actually is, and how you can utilize it to make the best quality videos possible. In hindsight, FPS is how many frames or images get played per second in a video to make up the illusion of motion. Changing the FPS value directly affects how choppy or smooth your video turns out to be. I've put together a quick demonstration to show you how FPS actually looks to the naked eye. In this demonstration, you can see two balls. The football or soccer ball is played at a higher frame rate or frames per second than the baseball, which is at a lower frames per second. Can you tell the difference? The key difference you'll probably notice is that the football or soccer ball is moving a lot smoother, and you can keep your eyes focused on its position on the screen more so than you can with the baseball. It's common practice nowadays to use 60 frames per second when making videos. You can get away with 30 frames per second, however, you're going to lose the quality and smoothness in your video. Using the previous analogy, 60 frames a second is going to make it so much easier for your viewers to keep track of what you're doing on your screen and in your videos. They'll also be able to pay more attention to the smaller, finer details in a lot of your cursor movements, especially. Let's dive in to Camtasia Recorder, where I can show you where you can set these values for your frame rate. So in Windows, let's go ahead and open Camtasia Recorder. With Camtasia Recorder open, we can go ahead and click on Tools and select Options. This will bring up our Tools Options window. If we go over to the Inputs tab, under Screen we have Target Capture Frame Rate, and by default this will be set to 30. We can go ahead and change this to our preferred 60 frames per second by clicking on the drop down and selecting 60. With that done, we can click OK, and our frame rate is set, ready to record. Another thing to consider is our export settings within Camtasia after we've recorded our video at our desired frame rate. We need to set our frame rate for our export at the same frame rate as we recorded the video. We can do this by going to Export, Local File, click Next, Next again, and you're presented with this window. You need to go to the Video Settings tab, and here we can set our frame rate. By default, this will be set to 30, so we can change this by clicking the drop down arrow and setting 60, and then continuing with the export wizard to export your video. As a rule of thumb, anything less than 30 frames per second is usually unwatchable and makes for a bad video. But we have to appreciate that CPU limitations and processing power come into play when encoding video. So the more quality and more data that you're pushing into your video, for instance, twice the amount of frames per second, can deteriorate on slower systems. So I hope this has helped you understand what frame rate is and how you can utilize it in your videos. That's a really quick tip from me, and I'll see you in another video.